the motto behind TED is ideas worth spreading. Unfortunately, that sometimes means that distortions, non-truths, opinions worth spreading get perforated out there as well. And it may be an idea, but sometimes if it's an idea and it spreads, it's just as terrible and as awful as an innovation being spread. In the world of education, the idea of innovation being what will drive what happens, innovation created by someone will transform the world of education, is a distortion. The world of education, words like revolution get thrown around, and revolution oftentimes mean change. But if you think about revolution mathematically, if I stood here and I made a complete revolution, I'd end up exactly where I started. Transforming the world of education is not about what people outside of education do and think about to make it different. It's about what you do in the lives of young people to allow them to envision new possibilities. We can't say we're giving them choice if the choices are the choices we lay out for them. Choice means really creating the possibilities for yourself and embarking on a mission on your own. It's not taking what somebody else created for you. With that said, I'll get into my talk. People oftentimes ask me what brought me to urban science education, what brings me to urban education, why do I do that work? You know, is it because you had an awful time in New York City public schools? Is it because you just want to push against the system? And the reality is that what brought me to education was those things, but really was my hero, my muse, my younger sister, Monique. I lost my sister in March of 2008 after a brave fight with colon cancer. She was 28 years old. I never felt like she had fulfilled her potential in this world. But despite the fact that I lost her, there was a lot of messages that I took out of her journey in life that inspires my work in education. So there's Monique. And Monique was one of those people who always had a desire or an innate ability to understand the pain that other people were going through as the mission through which she went forth in life. This picture is Mo at 8 years old, and I remember her scurrying into my room and saying, Chris, we've got to do something. And I was like, what are you talking about? We have to do something. And she goes, did you know that there are 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds around the world just like us, and they're dying, and they don't have water, and they don't have food, and we have to do something about it. And tears welled up in her eyes at 8. And I was saying, great, this is Monique again. And I'm saying, well, what do you want us to do? And she goes, well, you know, for the price of our allowance, we can actually adopt like 6 kids. And I was like, well, this is a great idea if you want to do that with your allowance, but not mine. But she actually took a step further, and she went out there and she contacted this agency, and she adopted children across the globe because she saw the pain in the eyes of the other people, and that motivated her to want to fight. It was the pain that drove her to something different. And I remember when she first got into grad school and she moved up to Buffalo, New York, and we're city people, so we're like, you're going to Buffalo? You know, you're from New York. Like Buffalo's not New York. It's in New York, but it's not New York. Sorry, Buffalo people. And when she went up there, you know, the first call I got from her was saying, in Buffalo, there's so much more challenge here than I thought. There are all these young women of color who have no examples about seeing a different life and going on to grad school, and teenage pregnancy is rampant, and I want to be a mentor. And I said, don't you mean womentor? But that's me and my corny jokes. But and she said, I want to take on this task. And she did just that. And she started an organization, and it actually still exists today, called Eniola Sisters in Buffalo, that connects young women of color with kids in high school and allows them to envision new possibilities. But the idea was she went up there and she saw the pain in the eyes of the people and of the young ladies there, and that is what drove her to fight. And I remember a couple weeks before I lost Monique, I was sitting in my office at a crossroads because my work is in science education. I'm saying, what do I dedicate my life to as a science educator? Do I focus on new curriculum? Do I focus on changing the structures of schools? I was coming up with what I thought were innovations to address the challenges in urban science education. And I jumped in my car and drove 8 hours to see Mo because my muse would give me an answer. And when I got there, I got into the hospital. I walked in hurriedly, and I sat at her side, and I looked at her, and she had the smile on her face. And when I saw that smile on her face, I was like, you know what? Things are going to be okay. And I looked at that smile on her face, and I started spouting out all these ideas about what it is I wanted to try to do to change the world of education. And as I was asking her, and as she nodded knowingly as I spoke, a nurse walked into the room, and the nurse said, Monique, how's your pain today? On a scale of 1 to 10, how's your pain today? And she looked up, and she raised her hand, and she put up a 1, which means that she was in little to no pain. And the nurse walked out, and at the time I thought, this is great, she's no longer in pain. And we spoke some more, and I went home, and a few days later, she died. And when I thought about that experience and how gut-wrenching it is for me today to share that experience with you, I realized that the reason that she stopped fighting was because she no longer felt the pain. The fact that they'd created some concoction there that allowed her to somehow feel numb was what made her stop fighting. She had had these sort of markers of how long she'd lived before, and she overcame them. She'd hold her stomach and say, I'd be okay. But when the pain stopped, the fight stopped. And that was that smile. Beautiful, comfortable, but not fighting. One of my favorite quotes is by Anais Nin, who was an amazing writer. She started writing at the age of 11, and she wrote up until the end of her life. And this quote always spoke to me as an educator, and it says, and the day came when the risk to remain tight in the bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. And I took that to the world of education, saying at some point, urban youth in schools would feel like it's just too painful to be constrained in these schools, and I'd be willing to go through the pain to fight, to blossom, to open up new possibilities. And then I started to ask myself the question, what if they never felt the pain? What if the innovation we talked about in education really just sedated them? What if it just made them numb? What if in their discomfort, in that closed space, as they're tightened up in that bud, what if when they were just going through experiences every day, they never felt like, I want to go through the pain to see a new possibility because it's kind of comfortable here? What if in that amazing charter school or private school or even public school, I got all the things I needed? I got technology, I got a new building, I got new uniforms, and so because of that, it's so comfortable, I don't have to fight anymore. And what that means is when you give folks all these things that you think they should have, and it makes them comfortable in their discomfort and not willing to see the pain in it, then they don't fight. And if we want a better world, a healthier world, what we have to do is confront young people with the realities of the world around them. They shouldn't have to wait to get into an Ivy League institution and an institution for public affairs to finally understand or be opened up to the realities in the world around them. That urban public education, to be truly urban public education, must open youth up to the realities of their experiences, to realize that people are making decisions about them without them, to make them realize that there are asthma clusters in their neighborhood, to let them realize that there's pollution in their environment, to let them understand that climate change is happening, not just to have them memorize information, because memorizing information and being comfortable in that space means that you're not being innovative. You'll never fight. And to fight, you first have to feel the pain. And we've removed the pain from their experiences in the interest of making them feel better. But if you're making them feel better, but you're not giving them a thing to fight for, and a new opportunity and a new future, then what's the purpose? What's the purpose? One of my favorite songs is by Fela Kuti. And Fela Kuti is a Nigerian artist who died for his craft. He was a political activist and an amazing musician. And he wrote one of my favorite songs called Suffering and Smiling. He calls it Shuffering and Smiling. And he talked about the post-colonial tradition in West Africa. And in essence, he was talking about the fact that the people were so comfortable with the colonial powers that they'd been lulled to sleep. And so they were going through all these awful practices in their everyday lives, but, what did it matter? Because it's okay, despite the fact that it was oppressive. And here's some lyrics. It's in pidgin English, it's broken English, but I hope you understand. Them go reach house, water no day. Meaning I go home, but there's no water. They reach bed, power no day. I go home to sleep, but there's no electricity. They reach road, go slow, go come. Endless traffic, I can't move. They reach road, police go slap. Police brutality in their neighborhoods. They reach road, army go whip. The military is taking over their lives and beating them. They look pocket, money no day. I look at my pocket, I have no money. They reach work, query day. They go to work and it's always question after question and the question after question. Every day, now the same thing over and over again. And the title of the song is Suffering and Smiling. And that is urban education. Youth suffering, we telling them things that make them comfortable, and they're smiling, but they're not fighting because the pain has been lost. So what do? We have to rethink education without the other bells and whistles, and they count and they're fine, and we could bring equity in different ways, but education has to be for social and political action. You can teach your science lesson and have youth understand the realities in their experience. You can teach a math lesson and have them calculate the fact that these awful things going on in their community, that we can teach instruction in a very rigorous way, at the same time opening up to the realities of their experiences. Have them sort of feel a little bit of that pain so they can motivate forward. And you can all play a part in that. As folks who are interested in global issues, you can adopt a school and start a club, and the purpose of your club could simply be to open up the students to the world around them, to the issues around the globe that will motivate them to have a better world and a healthier world. We can do some things, but who is going to create the next better and healthier world are the young people in classrooms today. And if we don't open it up to the pain in the world, then they become numb. And if they're numb, we'll never do anything about it. And as I close, I don't want you to think I'm here just to preach to you and give you a charge of what to do. I like to live what I say. For me to be here today and share the story of my sister is painful. It's absolutely painful. I haven't spoken about her publicly in this way, ever. But if I'm asking you to feel the pain and introduce you to the pain, so that it can move towards a better world, then I have to be willing to do the same. I share this story for you as an example of confronting that pain allows you to deliver your message. And I hope you take the message. Thank you.